Thanks for joining us for Part B, Gastroenterology, Common Rejections and Denials. This is a webinar designed for those who submit claims on the CMS 1500 claim form or the 837P or the 837 Professional Electronic Claim. My name is Mary Moko. I am a specialist on the Provider Outreach and Education team at WPS GHA. I will be your host today. Assisting me is my friend and colleague, Ellen Barra. We begin our presentation today, just as we do with all our education, with this disclaimer. We do this to remind learners that although we made every effort to provide current information that is correct, the information is subject to change. It is on the CMS website where you will find the Medicare rules that determine final coverage. These laws, regulations, and rulings will always prevail. We will provide responses to questions based on the facts given. And just one final reminder before we move on. CMS prohibits recording of this presentation for profit-making purposes. We are recording this presentation and we'll place it on our Encore Presentations webpage and also on the YouTube channel. Here is our agenda for today, and I want to provide a little bit of background for you on why we're providing this data-driven education today. In their internet-only manual, it is publication 100-09, Chapter 6, CMS instructs the MACs that we have to analyze and provide education on claim submission errors. Now, claim submission errors include those that result in rejected or denied claims. For today's webinar, I advertised that I would discuss data for Specialty 10 gastroenterology providers. Topics I said I would cover include some common rejections and denials, ways to fix them or avoid them, and I'll also be providing some resources. Finally, I advertised that I would answer questions about those common rejections and denials that I'll be discussing during this webinar today. To fully understand rejections and denials, it's very important that you recognize the path that a claim takes, or what we like to call the life of a claim. Here is a simplified graphic, and this shows how a claim gets into our system. The service is provided, a claim is submitted, and our system may reject the claim or the batch of claims. When that occurs, a 277 or 999 report is generated. Here's a little bit more detail about that. Most providers submit claims electronically. Very few are actually granted a waiver under a law that prohibits payment of any service or item when a provider did not bill it electronically. Now, to confirm claim receipt, providers should use the 999 report. Use the 277 report for more specific information. Our electronic data interchange, or EDI staff, actually provides some very helpful information in companion guides. This will help clarify and further define the data content requirements for an electronic claim. Based on these reports, you will know if the batch is rejected and if you need to correct or resubmit those claims. Here is a simplified graphic that shows what happens to a claim when Medicare deems it as unprocessable. And unprocessable is another name for rejection. This slide provides for you a side-by-side comparison of a rejection to a denial. And these are very, very different. And it's important to understand that. Even here at Medicare, some people sometimes use these words interchangeably, and we really shouldn't. They're very, very different things. A rejected claim is one that's not processable. It's unprocessable. It's returned on the front end. It's never adjudicated. The reason why it's rejected is that it is incorrect or missing something from the claim. Perhaps something is just simply invalid or doesn't make sense. For rejected claims, because they never really truly are adjudicated, there are no appeal rights. What you need to do is fix it and resubmit the service. When you receive notification of a rejection, there will be specific remittance advice remark codes, or some, I should say, remittance advice remark codes that appear on the remittance advice. An MA130 is a remittance advice remark code that states or tells you that your claim contains incomplete or invalid information and that no appeal rights are afforded because that claim is unprocessable. It also tells you to please submit a new claim with the correct or the complete information. Also, for rejected claims, you will see CO16. It's a group code on that remittance advice. And a CO16 means that it is contractual obligation and the provider may not bill the patient for that particular item or service. A denied claim, on the other hand, is adjudicated, and it's denied because it fails to meet Medicare's payment criteria. Now, there's different types of payment criteria. Some would be those that are based on law or what we call statutory requirements. Sometimes services deny because they don't meet Medicare's medical necessity guidelines. Frequency or utilization parameters are considered a form of a medical necessity denial. And those, of course, would be those types of denials that you may want to consider presenting your patient with an advance notice of non-coverage, those beneficiary notices of non-coverage in ABN. There's also many denials that occur due to eligibility. And when I say eligibility, I mean eligibility of the provider of the service or perhaps even eligibility of that Medicare beneficiary. When a service is denied, well, let me correct that. Most often, with few exceptions, when a service is denied by Medicare, an MA01 code appears on the remittance advice. And that MA01 code on the remittance advice actually provides appeals rights to the provider or the patient, or both. When a service is denied, the patient liability is determined. This graphic shows the path for a processed claim, one that has been adjudicated. Of course, the service is provided, the claim is submitted, and Medicare determines that the claim does meet payment guidelines and parameters and makes payment, or Medicare determines the service or services, some of the services, are denied. In either case, a remittance advice is generated. I want to talk about the remittance advice, or the RA, just for a moment. It's very, very important that providers do refer to the information there on it. Sometimes we refer to this as the remittance notice. Most providers will receive an electronic remittance advice, an ERA, as opposed to a standard paper remittance, an SPR. Now, depending on how the claim processed, it could include information about any adjustments made to the claim or denials. The RA may also include information about something that is missing, and sometimes it even provides notice about refunds and offsets. The ERA also provides payment information about the transfer of funds. Now, this could be payment processing from a health plan to a healthcare provider's bank. There are codes on the remittance advice. I talked about a couple of them already, and these provide information about the claim. Claim Adjustment Reason Codes, or CARCs, explain why a claim paid differently than billed. Remittance Advice Remark Codes, or RARCs, provide more details about an adjustment that was described by a Claim Adjustment Reason Code. Another type of code, and one that I already mentioned, that appears on the remittance advice is a group code. A CO stands for contractual obligation, and this means that the provider is liable and the provider can't bill the patient. A PR group code or a group code that begins with PR means the patient is financially responsible for payment of any services not covered by Medicare or the balance of the services. You can find code lists on the Washington Publishing Company's website. This particular slide includes a link to those code lists and a link to the website itself. Now, I do want to mention here that WPS understands that some of the codes, those reason codes, may be cryptic or they may be out of date. And one example would be the use of an outdated acronym in those code messages. WPS can't change the reason code messages on these WPC, that Washington Publishing Company's website. There is some mention there about how you can contact them should you have any recommendations or suggestions for changes to those code lists. But again, WPS is unable to change those codes. It is the WPC, the Washington Publishing Company, that maintains those codes for CMS, and then the MACs all use those code lists. If you would like to learn more about the remittance advice, there's a couple of great resources I've included here on this slide if you would like to look at that information in greater detail. And both of these are resources that are available on the CMS website. Next, I want to talk about whether you need to correct or appeal the MAC's decision to pay or deny a claim. After reviewing the remittance advice, providers will need to choose the appropriate action or choose an action to take. For an unprocessable or rejected claim, you'll need to fix the error and resubmit the claim to Medicare. If the claim or claim line denied, there may be multiple actions to choose from. You might be able to simply resubmit the service on a new claim. You might also use the clerical error reopening or CER process, that's CER process, to fix those clerical errors. And CMS defines clerical errors, including minor errors or omissions, as a human or mechanical error. And I'll talk more about that clerical error reopening process in just a couple of minutes. Another action to consider choosing is an appeal. The remittance advice will provide appeal rights, and as I mentioned, there's just a couple of exceptions or very few exceptions where there are appeal rights for a rejected claim. Excuse me, I have to fix myself. The denied claim. There are no appeal rights for rejected claims. I'll discuss appeals a little bit later on in this webinar also and provide you with some resources where you can find additional information on appeals. Now, if you're a registered user of our transactional portal, you may be able to, or you can actually render a clerical error reopening as a self-service feature of that tool. You can also use the transactional portal to request an appeal. And the transactional portal is that secure side of our website. You'll need to register in order to use it, and you'll need to log in to gain access to all of its functionalities. We're currently undergoing an upgrade to that product, and we look for some new revisions and enhancements to our transactional portal to be available later on this summer. Now, these are self-service tools. This tool, rather, the transactional portal, and any other self-service tool that Medicare offers are really truly the most efficient way to make corrections. Our portal user manual provides illustrations, and it also has step-by-step instructions on how to use those portal features, those self-service features, and all of those functionalities of the transactional portal. I want to talk now about that clerical error reopening process that I just mentioned on the previous slide. It is a process to correct human or mechanical errors. So clerical errors or minor errors are limited to errors in form and content. Omissions do not include failure to bill for certain items or services. Now, the final bullet on this slide actually links to a helpful resource on our website. It's a very good resource for you if you're considering requesting a clerical error reopening, because it describes situations that can and cannot be processed as a clerical error reopening. It also explains how to request one if you choose to not go the self-service route. You can actually request a clerical error reopening via telephone or fax. And of course, you can use the portal for self-service access to that functionality. Remember that the portal user manual provides instructions. The notes here on this particular slide indicate that you can submit a clerical error reopening request within 1 year of the remittance advice receipt date. And of course, if you're doing it yourself using the self-service functionality on the transactional portal, you do have 1 year from the remittance advice receipt date. A couple examples of things that you may want to correct using this process, or those that are acceptable clerical error submissions, include mathematical or computational mistakes, transposed procedure or diagnosis codes, inaccurate data entry, misapplication of a fee schedule, or other computer errors. And here's a little bit more information for you about appeals. As I mentioned, for claim denials, most often, with few exceptions, you can request an appeal. And the purpose of that process, the appeals process that is to ensure the correct adjudication of Medicare claims. Physicians, suppliers, and beneficiaries all have the right to appeal claim determinations that are made by the MAC. The beneficiary or their representative may request an appeal on any service processed for them. However, providers and suppliers must appeal services for which they accepted assignment. Now, for those situations where a claim is unassigned, a provider or supplier can act as the beneficiary's representative, but only if that beneficiary signs an authorization statement. One such form is the CMS 1696 Appointment of Representative. Additionally, Medicare allows providers and suppliers to request a redetermination, that's the first level of appeal, on an unassigned claim if Medicare denied that service or a service as not reasonable and necessary, or in those situations where the provider or supplier billed in excess of the limiting charge. And when that occurs, of course, the provider or supplier must refund any fees over collected from the beneficiary. Now, there are 5 levels of Medicare appeals. The first is the only level of appeal that is done at the MAC level, or at the MAC. For those of you that might not be familiar with that acronym there that you see on the slide, and one that I've been mentioning a couple of times so far, a MAC, M-A-C, is a Medicare Administrative Contractor. And WPS-GHA is the MAC for Jurisdiction 5 and Jurisdiction 8 providers. This is the only level of appeal I mentioned that is rendered by the MAC. All 5 levels of appeal have time limits that you have in order to file the request, and the clock starts ticking when that claim remittance advice is generated and sent to the provider. There are also time limits for completing an appeal request. So for example, if an appeal request comes to WPS for the level 1 redetermination, there's a time limit you have to submit that to WPS, and there's a time limit that applies for WPS to complete the appeal for that particular item or service for that claim line. Time frames, as I mentioned, do apply and are very important, but we also have some things that apply for level 3 and level 5 appeals. It's called the amount in controversy, and it's actually a dollar threshold that applies, and you have to meet that threshold, that minimum amount in controversy, in order to request a level 3 or level 5 appeal. Now, you can combine like denials on more than one claim, even more than one patient or beneficiary, in order to reach that minimum amount in controversy. And that minimum amount of controversy can change from year to year. Doesn't always change, but it can. Here are a couple of appeals resources. The first one is a resource that we have published on our website. It's how to appeal a claim determination. It includes information about all the levels, where to submit a request for a redetermination, because that's the level 1 appeal, the one that WPS-GHA will render for your claim, your denied service. The second item here on this slide is one of my personal favorites that I like to show to providers when I'm talking about appeals. And of course, we could talk a whole 60-minute presentation on appeals alone and the process and such. But I really like using this appeals process flowchart that's available on CMS's website. It includes all 5 levels of appeal. It tells you the time frame to request your appeal. It tells you the time frame to complete the appeal. It also has those minimum amounts in controversy for level 3 and level 5. And I particularly like this because you can see, where you're at in the process. If you're at level 3, it tells you to which contractor, to which entity rather, you need to submit that appeal request. As I mentioned, there's a lot of great information out on our website in that how to appeal a claim determination resource that does identify each of the 5 levels. Just a reminder that the amounts in controversy sometimes change from year to year. That appeals process flowchart that CMS publishes on their website is updated annually. They wait until the final rule is published. That usually happens in November. Sometimes it takes them a little while, excuse me, to update this process flowchart. So make certain you're checking out the date at the bottom of this great tool in order to make certain that you're looking at the current information for the date of service that you're billing for. All right, this brings us now to the data dashboard. I mentioned when I advertised this particular webinar that I'll be revealing the common reasons for rejections and denials of Medicare claims. And for this particular presentation today, I advertised that the information I'm talking about is specific to Specialty 10 providers. Specialty 10 is a gastroenterology provider. I looked at data for all of our states in our jurisdictions 5 and 8. So it's Specialty 10, only gastroenterology claims or claims submitted by a gastroenterology specialist in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Indiana, and Michigan. The dashboard that I used, and the dashboard is a tool that our data analysts created that people like Ellen and me can use. It is a claims denial dashboard. It also includes rejected claims information. We can go in and choose which states we want to look at, which specialties, even drill down to CPT codes and HCPCS codes. And I didn't drill down that far because I don't have enough time in this presentation today to go through the reasons for each of the codes, or the most common codes, specifically, to break it down by numbers. But I can tell you that I'm going to reveal for you the most common reasons for claim denials and rejections for gastroenterology claims, those submitted November 1 of 2023 through April 30 of 2024. Now, this data that I pulled from this dashboard, this tool that I used, was last refreshed on May 7. And what that means is that any gastroenterologist that submitted a claim in our jurisdictions 5 and 8 that submitted a claim that that falls into those claim submission dates, but after May 7th won't be included in this data. Okay, the data was last refreshed May 7th, and I haven't looked at it since then because I had to create this PowerPoint and get it out to our website as presentation material for you. So let's take a look at the reveal of those most common rejections by reason for Specialty 10 claims. Here are the common rejections by reason code. You will see numbers listed or found after the reason for rejection. 1,249 rejections for those parameters here on this slide that I just talked about. Submission dates November through April, specialty 10. 1,249 claims were rejected or deemed unprocessable because the claim lacks information needed for adjudication. You would need to, or I would recommend that you take a look at the remittance advice and look at all of those reason and remark codes to determine what information is specifically lacking. Another tool that you can use is the claim form instructions that appear in CMS's Internet-only manual, publication 100-04. That's the claims processing manual. We have a crosswalk tool available that crosswalks you from the claim form instructions for paper claims or for the formatting of information and data required on a paper claim as opposed to an electronic claim. For example, if it goes in item 19 on the paper claim form, where does it go on the electronic version? Okay, I'll be showing you that in just a little bit. So you'll need to take a look at additional information on the remittance advice. Take a look at your claim to see what was missing and needed for adjudication. Add that information and resubmit the claim. Another common rejection by reason, 442 of them, was invalid or missing modifier. Now, to avoid this, I would look at the WPS website. We have modifier fact sheets for just about every modifier that exists. We're also hosting Modifier Monday webinars, the first or the second, I believe, Monday of every month, and we record those and make them available on our YouTube channel. Another common rejection reason for gastroenterologists and only gastroenterologists, the data I'm presenting now pertains only to gastroenterology claims. 284 rejections because the rendering physician number was invalid or it was missing altogether. So you need to fix it and resubmit a new claim. One of the resources that I've provided for you and listed on a later slide in this presentation is a directory that CMS has available on their website that includes rendering and physicians that can order or render services for Medicare beneficiaries, and identifier information is also available in that resource. Next is claim must be submitted to the RRB. RRB, there's an acronym, and that's how it prints out on the remittance advice. So I did use acronyms on this slide without writing them out. RRB is Railroad Retirement Board. For those Medicare beneficiaries who were railroad employees, their claims are processed by a railroad the railroad MAC, and that is Palmetto. It is not WPS, but for those beneficiaries that are railroad retirees, claims must be submitted to the Railroad Retirement Board. Now, how can you avoid this rejection? This is a situation where this could be avoided most often by those that are working in your office where the patient presents, office or where have you, ask to see that Medicare card. If the patient is a railroad retiree, that information will be printed across the bottom front of their Medicare card. It will say Railroad Retirement Board on it. Another thing you can do here is use our self-service tools to verify eligibility. And I'll be talking about those eligibility tools later when I present resources during this presentation. Another rejection reason is the missing procedure modifiers, 103 rejections. As I mentioned to you, we do have those modifier fact sheets available on our website that explain correct use of a particular modifier, incorrect uses, or provides examples, inappropriate uses. Sometimes we identify the code range for which a modifier can be used, and other information as well. Those are great resources that are available to you, and they really will help you fix or avoid rejections. Here are more common rejections for gastroenterology: missing, incomplete, invalid, ordering primary identifier. And I talked to you already about the resource that CMS makes available on their website that contains the list of ordering primary identifiers, or those providers that may order a service for a Medicare beneficiary. This might be a situation where that number may just have been keyed incorrectly, making it invalid. Maybe some of the numbers in the identifier were missing, or it was an incomplete identifier. Either way, you would need to put a valid ordering primary identifier on that claim. Follow the claim form instructions so you know where it goes on the claim, and resubmit that claim to Medicare. The next one is one of those situations where I mentioned that, we really can't control how those error reasons print out on the remittance advice. And this is one I kind of laugh at, because I told you all how important it is to recognize the difference between a rejection and a denial. Well, this is a rejection, ladies and gentlemen, but it says denied, the first word, in that notice that comes to you, or that reason code that prints out on the remittance advice. Denied, field 11 of HCFA 1500, and there's another outdated acronym use there. Another one of those situations I mentioned to you earlier about those codes that are maintained by the Washington Publishing Company. This particular rejection still prints out with HCFA 1500, and the HCFA 1500 was long ago replaced by the CMS 1500. So this one's just a little bit out of date. 96 rejections. The next, clinic number missing or was not entered. That one is really pretty self-explanatory. You'll need to put that clinic number information onto the claim if it wasn't entered, or make certain it was entered correctly if it was there. Next is facility and lab name and address, or PIN missing. 50 rejections for that time frame that I looked at on the dashboard. I have a resource later that speaks to this particular common rejection and tells you what you need to place on the claim form. The next one, patient insured HICH and name do not match. Health insurance claim history. If the patient name on the claim does not match exactly the patient's name on their Medicare card, you're going to get a rejection like this. You'll need to make certain that the information that's placed on the claim matches the information for that particular patient or the beneficiary on their Medicare claim. So as I mentioned to you, these rejections that I've just revealed to you are the most common rejections for gastroenterologists. I thought it would be interesting to share with you, for those common rejection reasons, those common rejections by HCPCS and CPT code. So these are the codes that rejected based on those most common rejections that I just talked about. You can see that some of these CPT codes are various colonoscopy procedure codes. We do have a local coverage determination called colonoscopy and sigmoidoscopy diagnostic. We also have the billing and coding guidelines, colonoscopy and sigmoidoscopy diagnostic, which provide those coding and billing tips for you so that you can submit those claims correctly. When I was preparing for today's presentation, I'm going to pull this over and show you. This is our homepage on our website. One of the things you can do if you're billing for a service and you question, is there billing and coding advice? Is there a local coverage determination? You can go to the WPS-GHA website on our homepage. Here near the top left-hand side is a code lookup tool. You can choose the LCD and article lookup, or you can look up for a national coverage determination. You can enter a code, a title, or a definition in this box. In this case, I would just look at a particular code that was on this list of rejections. If you want to find the policy for it, hit search, or click on search, choose search, I should say. And what's going to happen then, if there is a match, if there's any results, it will show here. You can then use these embedded links to open that particular policy up. Now I do need to tell you, or billing and coding guideline, I do need to tell you that these are housed on the CMS website. So when you do choose to open either a billing and coding article. I'll do that right now. This is what happens. You're going to be You'll be taken to the results for our lookups, and then when you choose to open a link, it's actually going to open the link on the CMS website and show you the billing and coding article or the LCD in its entirety. We don't house those on our website. So you'll actually leave the WPS website and go to the CMS website when you're opening an actual local coverage determination or billing and coding article. So that's just one great way you can find information and avoid rejections that for services that are included in a policy. Other things you might see on here are other codes listed are evaluation and management services. CMS has published an evaluation and management services guide. Ellen has placed that link in the chat for you. This is a guide that's prepared and updated by CMS and provides great information for you about billing, evaluation, and management services. Additionally, it's been mostly Ellen that has done a number of educational sessions about evaluation and management services. Those have been recorded. They're available on our website. They're available on our website for about 90 days following the live event, but they're also posted to our YouTube channel. Now, one thing I do need to caution you about is if CMS makes a change that pertains to evaluation and management services guidelines, what might happen is that that particular recording may go away. From our YouTube channel, or if it's recent, like within the last 90 days, we'll remove it from that Encore Presentations webpage. Most often what we'll do then is we'll get busy and place some replacement education out there or an addenda that tells you what has changed. So evaluation and management services follow the CMS guidelines. They are included in that that great publication that they have published, as well as places that we have published information that pertains to evaluation and management services. Our website, our YouTube channel. We actually have an evaluation and management services playlist on our YouTube channel. So those YouTube recordings that we have available, or those videos that pertain to E&M, are included on that particular playlist. You can see that there's a couple G codes listed there. Those are the colorectal cancer screening. Again, look to the policies for those services when there are policies, or you can look to published information about those services on the CMS website. I want to talk next about the common denials by reason. And remember that these are indeed specific to gastroenterology. These numbers that I pulled, this data that I pulled is specific to gastroenterology. The first one, to me, when I read it, it seems a little cryptic. I asked myself, well, what does this really mean? Collection of fee-for-service during periods of managed care. I actually needed to go to some other departments at WPS GHA to make certain that this denial reason is really what I thought it was. It's just by reading it, it's a bit cryptic, but what it means is that particular beneficiary is enrolled in a managed care Medicare plan. So it's a Part C Medicare beneficiary or a Medicare Advantage beneficiary, and those claims do not come to WPS GHA. They have to be processed by the plan. The next one and the very last one you'll see are a little bit similar. Duplicate charge paid on such and such a date on this claim, and then the question mark 001 and those X's would be the identifier for the claim, or the ICN, the internal claim number, control number. That first question mark 002 with the X's, that would be a date. So this would say duplicate charge paid June 21, 2022 on claim so-and-so. Okay, I'm just pulling out numbers. So over 1,000 claims, duplicate or claims denied or claim denials occurred for that reason. 690 more occurred because it's a duplicate charge of a claim that's now being processed. So what that means, that last bullet here, that means is that there's a duplicate claim or duplicate charge in our processing system right now at the same time that another claim is being processed. Now, if you think about that for a minute, those those duplicate charges cost you money to prepare and submit a claim, do they not? I think your answer is yes. I can't hear you, but I think you're probably nodding your head. It costs you money to prepare and submit those claims. If you use a billing service, they might charge you to submit a claim. Per claim. So it's costing you money. The more claims submitted, the more money it costs. It costs Medicare money to process these charges. So it is considered abusive to submit a duplicate claim and not change your billing processes to avoid that when you can. Let me give you an example of that. Some providers have a billing cycle where every 30 days they submit a claim if the previous claim submitted for that service hasn't already been processed and payment made. If you use a billing service and they do this, you need to tell them to stop doing that. It is abusive. It is a cost to the Medicare Trust Fund, and it's also a cost to your office or billing entity. Next one, this physician supplier, looks like I had an extra capital S there, sorry about that, is not eligible to receive payment. What you're going to want to do is, if you believe the provider billing for the service is indeed enrolled, you need to make certain that the enrollment records within provider enrollment are up to date. So that would be one where you would want to contact enrollment. Claim must be sent to the EGHP first. EGHP stands for Employer Group Health Plan. This is a situation where an employer group health plan should pay first. That means Medicare is secondary. We have loads of education available that addressed Medicare secondary payer systems. There is one of those is a really good question and answer document that I've included as a resource later in this presentation. And there, of course, is that duplicate. Payment included in another service received on the same day. Sometimes within the policy, there may be guidelines that state that payment is included for a particular item or service in another service when they're rendered by the same provider on the same day. There may be situations where services are bundled and a service is a status code B on the CMS relative value file. That means that that code is never separately paid. So those are just a couple of the resources to fix or not to fix, but to request or to know about so that you know whether or not you should request an appeal for an item or service that might have been denied for that reason. Duplicate charge. There's another 440 claims, duplicate or claim lines. The next is denied service or units of service are exceeded. Those are the medically unlikely edits. This is part of the National Correct Coding Initiative. For most services, CMS has published a list on their website in the medically unlikely edits that shows you the maximum units of service that can be billed on same day for the same service, but for the same beneficiary by the same provider. If you exceed that number, there's a hard-coded edit in our system. It's going to deny. Now, Medicare may consider payment or payment for additional units of service on an appeal. However, you will need to request the appeal and provide your documentation that it justifies the additional payment in order for us to make payment. Expenses incurred prior to coverage. Check your claim, make sure it was submitted with the correct date. Make sure your records are correct and the information in your files are correct. The next common denial. Time limit for filing your claim is expired. No appeal right. I do want to show you that real quick here. Out on the WPS website, timely filing is what we're talking about here. And I'm a searcher, not a navigator, so I tend to search using the search function up in the upper right corner. See, When I type timely filing in the search box and click on a drop-down list actually appears, and I'm going to select timely filing of claims. Here's a great article or resource we have available on our website that talks about timely filing of claims. You have 1 year from the date of service in order to file a claim, and that's what this article tells you. There are situations sometimes, and providers do ask us often, to reopen claims that are denied for timely filing, or to they request an appeal on a claim denied for timely filing. You can't appeal a claim that's denied for timely filing, even when it's due to a third-party error. And there is CMS language in Publication 100-04, Chapter 34. It's actually included in this article. This italicized language is CMS language taken from the IOM. That says that CMS does not accept errors caused by incorrect third-party payment as the justification for not submitting timely claims to Medicare. So just something for all of you to know about. Here is the instructions that tell you if you do believe you meet the qualifications for just cause or good cause, you can submit certain items to our claims manager and request a waiver of timely filing. This is where it explains how to do that. Now you'll notice here, this shows Indiana and Michigan. I'm on the J8 Part B website. You can see up here and over on the right. If you wanted J5 MAC Part B, you could simply click on there, and then you would get the Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska contact information. Okay, so some great information there. The last of the common denials, or most common, that I've included in this presentation today: not covered when performed, referred, or ordered by this provider. Then again, that again would be provider eligibility information you need to check, or Medicare guidelines to see if that is a particular item or service that can be performed, referred, or ordered by a particular provider. And CMS has that great resource that I'll point out to you in just a minute. Here are the commonly denied codes for WPS claims for the data I pulled for gastroenterologists. Claims submitted for those reasons that I just gave you. So again, evaluation and management services. Ellen has placed that link in the chat when we talked about resource codes. Consider using a modifier when an E&M is billed on the same day as surgery. We have those Monday modifier or modifier Monday presentations that we're doing. We have the fact sheets that speak to E&M the same day as surgery. We have global surgery fundamentals and global surgery modifier video recordings out on our YouTube channel, and this should help you to avoid these types of denials. And again, of course, you can see the CPT codes for colonoscopy out here, the various SCOPIs. Remember that we do have a local coverage determination and a billing and coding article. Speaking of which, one of my colleagues will soon be, is in the planning stages right now to do some LCD specific education. So for those of you, when you registered and you have suggestions or things you want to learn, if you identified that when you registered, I'll be passing that along in a document that we maintain that talks about those suggestions or ideas that beneficiary or providers have for specific kinds of education. Another really important way of letting us know what you want to learn about is when you complete the survey following today's event. You'll actually be asked if you have suggestions for future education, so things to keep in mind. That data dashboard also includes trending, and I've included a bit of information here. This just explains that we can break down that data in a number of ways. We can break down by state, by county, by HCPCS code state, HCPCS code county. We can also look at trending. As I mentioned, we can actually look at CPT codes and HCPCS codes and further break them down. Today's kind of an overview of common rejections and denials, but we are able to actually go in and drill down specific denials and rejections per code. And if that's something you're interested in, let us know when you fill out that survey. We can certainly consider doing that in the future. Here's what I mean by trending, and this one is a denial trend. These services are denied because the patient is in a hospice. The current claim 3 months claim count rather is 74. 3 months prior it was only 14. The difference in the number of claims is 60. That's gone up 429% over the last 3 months. So we look at this training to identify education needs, what it is we need to educate on. Do we have a resource on our website that speaks to this? So on and so forth. So we can easily see, and there's arrows that point up or down showing increases and decreases in these reports that we can pull from this data dashboard that I talked about earlier. Here then, folks, is the resources that I have pulled together, tons of them, for you to help you fix and avoid these resources. I know I talked about ways you could do that. This will just help you later following this presentation so that you can come back to them and see the written instructions and such. We have, here is the requirements for claims. You know, something's missing from the claim. We rejected it. Well, here's where you can go to help you determine what it is that was missing. You can also read additional reason and remark codes, of course, but Chapter 26 of the CMS Claims Processing Manual includes completing and processing instructions for a paper claim form. Well, we know that most people don't submit on paper anymore. They submit electronically. This document, this crosswalk, I'll go ahead and open that up real quick. Actually, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. CMS website or WPS website. If you go over to the click links, I'll make this a little bigger. Go to click links and choose EDI. Scroll down and select Medicare EDI. This is our electronic data interchange webpage. Here on the Medicare EDI webpage, you'll find a link to those companion guides I talked about that speak to the data that's required, the data that should be, it explains the data content requirements for particular claims at WPS. So that 277 report, that 277 companion guide is right here. Here's that crosswalk that I'm talking about now. And when we say crosswalk, what we are doing here is we are crosswalking the paper claim form guidelines in the IOM to a document that this document actually, let me back up a bit, crosses over to the electronic data element description and provides the loop for you. So in other words, let me make this a little bit easier. If in item 23, you're supposed to put the prior authorization number on a paper claim, and this says item number, that's the item number on the claim, where does that go on an electronic claim? This is where it tells you the loop and where you need to put that information. It tells you it's a prior auth number, and then it tells you the requirements for the version 5010, which is the electronic claim form. S means it's situational, that the data element must be completed if other conditions exist. R means that it's needed in order to process a claim. So you can go item by item on the paper claim form and crosswalk it to the electronic claim form. Great tool. I like to show that one to folks because they're not a lot of people that just aren't aware that that exists. All right, let's move through these others. A lot of these I've already talked about. Here is a resource on our website, How to Correct a Rejected Claim. It gives you a ton of reason and remark codes and tells you how you correct that claim for this remark code. So if this remark code appears on your remittance advice, how do you fix it? Great article. Great resource. Similarly, we have for denials, common claim denials, a resource. These are denials that are kind of grouped into various denial categories. We have reason and remark codes for bundling denials. We have reason and remark codes for duplicates, global surgery, provider number denials. So you'll find the actual reason and remark codes listed for these categories of service on our website. Also on our website, and I've included the link to it here, here's where you'll find those great questions and answers for MSP. Our live events webpage has links to future education. The Encore presentations webpage are those recordings that are out there 90 days. Remember, they are also available on our YouTube channel, and our YouTube channel is the last link on this slide. Now, I don't want to forget the second to the last one, went too fast here, the LCD and article lookup tool, and that's what I demonstrated already to you when I took you out to the home page of our website and showed you how you can enter a code and hit search to see if that particular code appears within a WPS-GHA local coverage determination or billing and coding article. So some great resources we have available. Here's where you can find those modifier fact sheets. This is that resource for timely filing of claims. I've already showed that to you. Here is proper billing for various Medicare Advantage HMO claims. Remember, one of those top denials we had was because the beneficiary had selected a Medicare Advantage plan, not WPS-GHA. Freedom of Information Act is where you can request specific denial information or claims history, not claims history, rejection and denial information for your provider entity. There may be a cost associated. We want to partner with you is a link to an article. So for example, if you belong to a gastroenterology specialty society or organization and you're looking for a speaker, you want to partner with WPS-GHA for a presentation, that tells you how you can go about requesting a speaker. Code lookup on the website homepage is that self-service tool I showed you. Here is Clinical Lab Center out on CMS website that talks about identification of labs and such, those that are covered under the Clinical Laboratory Improvement Act, although we didn't have denials or rejections specific to that. But this is where you can find more information about Clinical Lab Center and identifying where those services are being rendered on your claim form. That was one of those that we talked about today. Coverage database, national searchable depository of national and those local coverage determinations. Remember I told you that they were housed, our LCDs are housed on the CMS website. If you don't know how to use that self-service tool, CMS has published how to use the Medicare coverage database. Great resource for helping you find your way through the coverage database. Beneficiary notices initiative are for those situations when or is information that provides instructions and forms for those situations when you want to give your patient that beneficiary notice of non-coverage because you believe the likelihood that Medicare will deny your service is not medically necessary. Contractor Directory Interactive Map. If you open this particular resource, it is a map of the United States. You can pick on any state and it will open a new window that will tell you all of the contractors for that particular state. It will tell you the Medicare Advantage contractor. It will tell you the home health and hospice contractor. It will tell you the MAC, the DME MAC, the RAC, and so on and so forth. Great tool. Correct coding initiative edits. I placed this here because one of the top denials was the excessive units of service, and that would be these medically unlikely edits. So this is where you'll find that information. Here are more Medicare Advantage resources. And here is the reference guide for Medicare physicians and supplier billers, Part B. This is that ordering and referring resource, or those resources. There's a lot of information when you go out here that will identify those providers who are eligible to order and refer services for Medicare patients. And it also provides identifiers for those. So you can search, you can make sure that you have the identifier correct for the referring or ordering provider that you're reporting on your claim. All right, here is the information about those self-service tools. The next two slides are the IVR, the Interactive Voice Response System, and our transactional portal. These are both available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but there is limited functionality outside normal business hours. You can check eligibility, find claim status, and find details about rejections or denials on both of these self-service tools. For the IVR, you use your voice or your telephone keypad, and we do have available for you an IVR operating guide to help you maneuver through this. Here's the information specific to the transactional portal. I talked about this today, and I just kind of want to give this one a little extra plug here because there's a lot more information available on the portal than through the IVR, I believe, about claim details, your rejections and denials. It just makes it easier for you to get to all of these great resources and tools to use to fix a denial or to resubmit your rejected claim. The portal user manual is available if you are on the WPS website. Go back to that here. You can easily find the portal user manual by looking under the login box. There's a link here to the portal user manual right on our home page. And also when you scroll to the bottom page of the page under educational opportunities, here's the link to that portal user manual. You'll want to be taking a look at that, of course, when we update the enhancements or the functionalities later this summer. So when you're using the transactional portal and you're looking up at a claim detail line or claim line, there will often be a box that says, it's a blue box now, I don't know if it's going to stay blue in the update. It says more info, and if you click on that box, it opens up and provides you with resources. So for example, if your claim line denied based on information that appears in a local coverage determination, you can actually, when you click on that more info button, it will provide you with a link to that local coverage determination. So it's a great time saver. One more thing here before I get on to my closing remarks, and I've gone a little bit over. I do want to let you know that CMS and Noridian are partnering up to host an annual National Provider Enrollment Conference. The cost to attend this conference is free. Ellen has placed the link for the conference schedule, description, and registration information into the chat. It is in August. It is in San Diego. Times will vary by day. There will be a number of workshops at this particular event. Look to the information on the website for that schedule to learn more about what's being offered. Of course, you know, you're on your own to get there and for your lodging and such, but the conference itself is free. So CMS wants us to share that with you. The next slide I had reserved for questions, and I apologize that I've gone a little long today. A lot of information that I presented for you, and of course I wanted to show you some of the resources that I talked about today or demonstrate them. I will tell you in just a minute how you can submit those very important questions to me. And finally, in closing, I want to tell you that our greatest compliment is when you recommend our education to others. Please consider doing so. This helps us reach the greater provider community, helps us reach our goals to assure current and effective education for all of those in our MAC jurisdiction. You know, we found in the past that many of you have connections to those in our jurisdiction that might not normally open up and look at any of our education. So please consider us recommending our education to others. On behalf of myself and Ellen Vera and all of Provider Outreach and Education, I do want to thank you for your participation. We look forward to those survey comments, and so does CMS, and we hope to have you join us for future events. You may now disconnect. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day and happy summer.